What happens when your Airbnb turns into a flooded disaster zone overnight?
So we're trying to, get ahead of the claims and make sure that right from the beginning, we're handling everything. And again, ultimately that everything benefits the insured and our insured's in a great situation when all's said and done.
Today's guest knows exactly what to do when your worst case scenario becomes your new reality.
Listen, 1 out of 1,000 claims, we do look at claims where hey, everything's been paid pretty fair. There's a couple minor things you can ask the insurance for. There's a couple dollars they left out on the table that's easy for you to get, and we'll advise clients that way.
Andy Gurczak isn't just a public adjuster. He's the insider that insurance companies don't want you to call. And yes, he's wearing a pretty sweet hat.
So you have to be careful and know your policy and make sure that if you are going to be hosting an Airbnb, that you do update your policy, that you get with the carrier that does actually pay, that covers Airbnb specifically.
I'm 31-time Airbnb superhost Jason Muth. I worked in the media business for over 25 years, and in 2016, we purchased our first short-term rental, and that is now our chapter 2 in life. Since then, we've welcomed over 5,000 guests and their furry friends to our homes. And now we're here to show you how to create a smart stay. Now, here's Andy Gurczak. All right, we are super excited to welcome Andy Gurczak back to our podcast. Andy appeared when we were the Real Estate Law podcast and told us all about the world of adjusting, which we're going to hear about again right now. Insurance adjusters hopefully will never come into your life, but someday they might have to if you have a big insurance claim and you're having some issues with the insurance companies. Andy, welcome to Smart Stay Show.
Jason, Rory, thank you guys for having me on again. New show, so I don't know if it's the same, but I appreciate you guys accepting having me on again. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Andy, you're looking really sharp. We love the hat. This is a new look for you.
It's first day of spring in Midwest, and it's raining, it's snowing, so you don't know how to dress. I'm like, I got short shirt underneath, sweater. You got to prepare for all the weather. It was 70 like 2 days ago, so.
Yeah, my friend, you're in Chicago, right? Or in that area?
Indiana, right on the border. Yeah.
Indiana. So my friend's in Chicago, and he texted me this morning, and he's upset about the weather. And I said, well, what's the weather? Because what you're going to get, we're going to get a couple days later here in Massachusetts. But by the time this episode comes out, it's going to be well into the spring. So people are going to be like, what are you talking about bad weather? Like, let's hope that this weather pattern changes. But it's great to talk to you again. It's been a couple of years since we have spoken officially on the podcast. We met Andy back in 2023 when he explained to us what an adjuster does, a public adjuster. And I want to talk more about that again here in this world of short-term rentals, because since we last spoke, we've learned that, Andy, you are now a short-term rental owner yourself. And, you bring that perspective, which a lot of people who are listening to this podcast will welcome. And Rory, I know that since we last talked to Andy, we've actually had some experience with insurance claims, so we can certainly get into that. And I think, one reason, Rory, why you and I decided not to involve an adjuster was because we didn't have a problem with our claim.
Yeah, unfortunately, we know the stress of what it's like to go through a major insurance claim since we last spoke. A couple of things lined up for us that made our situation a little bit more fortunate. But even though we didn't use an adjuster, we took some of the advice that Andy gave us last time. We had it pretty well documented what was in the property. We made some steps to jump on the problem right away and face it head on. So thank you for the advice, even though our peculiar situation, we didn't use a public adjuster.
Yeah, that's awesome. You'll have to tell me a little bit more about that.
We will, but first, you tell us more about yourself, right? So just remind us what you're doing with All City Adjusting, All City Public Adjuster, what an adjuster does, kind of what the day-to-day is, and why somebody might need that.
Yeah, so we founded All City about 15 years ago. We're in about 40 states now with, I think, 6 or 7 offices that we have in different states. And we advocate for the insured. We represent the insured against the insurance companies, make sure not only, we maximize their claim, get each coverage, get the max out of each coverage. These days, it's also making sure a claim's not delayed long enough and then ultimately denied, because a lot of claims, that's what they're going. So we're trying to, get ahead of the claims and make sure that right from the beginning, we're handling everything. And again, ultimately that everything benefits the insured and our insured's in a great situation when all's said and done.
Yeah, that's a pretty succinct way to say that this is somebody that's going to be on your side if you do have an insurance claim and you have to go toe to toe with your insurance company. We could briefly fill you in on the claim that we had here as well, and maybe you'll give us some advice that we probably should have contacted someone like you during that process. But we had a flood caused by a guest at a short-term rental, and we've spoken about it, at length here on this podcast. So, I'll keep it really brief for the audience. But during a power outage, a guest left a sink faucet open
Oh, wow.
and left the sink stopped up, and they checked out. And then the next day the power came back on and nobody was there to turn the faucet off because they'd left it open. So it just ran hot water for hours, and there was steam coming off the house. It was cold outside. Our neighbors thought the house was on fire. They called the fire department. Fire department showed up and found a flooded house and called us. And then 3 months later, it was all rebuilt because we had a great insurance company and didn't miss a lick. They specialize in short-term rentals, and we didn't have to fight anything along the way. Like, we felt like the payouts were fair, got everyone paid, got everyone whole, and we decided to move on. So where did we screw up in that process, in your professional opinion?
I don't think you guys screwed up, because if you guys came out and you guys didn't pay anything out of pocket, I think you guys, there's nothing that you guys came out bad. That's more of when we see paperwork, when someone tells us, hey, I think we have a fair settlement, and we look at it and say, hey, well, this coverage didn't get paid and you missed out on this money, and you missed out here. It's easier to look at, and look at a claim once we actually review everything. Now, that being said, listen, 1 out of 1,000 claims, we do look at claims where, like, hey, everything's been paid pretty fair. There's a couple minor things you can ask the insurance for. There's a couple dollars they left out on the table that's easy for you to get, and we'll advise clients that way.
Yeah.
So
I think it's probably, we probably could have found some of those things as well. I mean, like, we've made it very clear, this was about $130,000 claim that got paid out, where about 60 was for the rebuild, and that all went to the builder, and we didn't come out of pocket for anything with the builder. So the builder was made whole, and they put everything back to as we needed it. About 30 and change went to ServPro, which did the remediation and the mitigation work. I believe ServPro submitted a higher bill to the insurance company. It was like 40 and change or so. And the insurance company said, okay, that's nice. Like, we'll pay you this. And they took it. So, that wasn't money that they asked for from us. That was money that I guess they negotiated what that rate was. And then we were entitled to lost income on the property, probably around $45,000 based on our policy. Our limit was about 50, and they did a calculation based on the guests that we had to cancel and the bookings that we didn't know about yet, because they were presumed to happen at a certain rate. And we thought that payout was fair as well. So I don't think we came out negative at all. Like, and it wasn't like we were looking to gouge them and make all this money and then, go on a fancy vacation. We just wanted to have everything back to what it was, and the lost income, I think, was a really good component of that policy that we had.
Yeah, when it comes to situations like that with water and stuff, look, we had a claim. This was a week ago. This was in Indiana. It was a referral where we came in. This was a second home for our clients, and the pipe broke by the toilet, and this was on the master bathroom on the upstairs floor, and it went all the way to the first floor basement. I mean, total loss, basically. Besides the second floor, doing a flood cut around the walls, the first floor, second basement was a total gut. So when we came in, we always ask for the policy up front. We met with the insured. The restoration company, I won't name a name, they had over, I want to say like 100 fans. So they told the insured that they said, hey, everything needs to be removed. Everything's wet. Everything's going to be, thrown out. But they had 50 fans, if not more, maybe 100. I mean, there was just fans everywhere running. Their mitigation, so they ran the fans for 2 days, because we told them after 2 days when we got hired that they can they can remove the fans. There's no need for drying it. Hence why the insured had a low limit. If they ran those fans for 5 days and then they did remediation, taking out the wet stuff, then they ran the fans again, they would have taken 2/3 of the limit of the client. And the insured would have been left with nothing to rebuild that that it was a custom, custom house they did for themselves. So our hands is when we get in there, again, we try to control, we look at the policy, make sure that our clients walk out with everything in their pocket and then they spend it. It's a little bit different, right? In your situation, again, as long as you guys are happy, you guys walked out and everything was handled fine, you guys didn't come out of pocket, then it's great. There's nothing, the insurance, did the right thing.
Rory, I was a little nervous with this conversation because I thought that like Andy was going to dress us down for not calling him.
No.
But
listen, yeah, go ahead, Rory. Sorry.
No, I mean, in a situation where, all's well that ends well, I agree. But if somebody's going toward an unnecessary remediation attempt at repairing something that's ultimately going to get replaced, that might not be the first thing that a homeowner thinks of, or even a professional, investor might think of in their property, and they can blow through the limit, relatively quickly. So right there, the conversation you have right there, the value you're giving there isn't necessarily antagonistic to the insurance company. It's about keeping the larger picture in mind and giving advice to somebody who may have never had an incident like that before in their whole lives.
I've worked with a lot of the large loss adjusters that we work with over and over again on large loss. They're some of the greatest people out there. Like that's how you handle claims. Like you meet in person, we agree on a scope, we agree on an estimate, agree on everything, and we're done. That's kind of how it's supposed to be. There's just less of those, right? Where the insurance companies are going and hiring consultants and IAs, they'll spend more money on engineers and more people to deny a loss, to prove a loss wrong or underpay a claim than actually just pay the claim fair the first time.
Yeah.
Your situation, Jason, is like this. Mm-hmm. When you look at a storm damage, right? And we don't do any storm damage residential. But in those situations, when you have 3 houses right next to each other, one house gets full roof, second house gets half, and then the third gets none. All have the same insurance, different adjuster, same coverages, same damage, just paid differently. Why? Right? It's just a game of numbers then. The one adjuster came out, says, maybe this is old damage. Again, that it just depends. So I'm happy that you guys, your claim, everything worked out. That's great.
Yeah. And, this was a big deal for us, obviously, but, and I'm sure it was a big deal for the insurance company as well. But, when we were talking to their CEO, who's been a guest on this podcast as well, and we had a great discussion about that specific situation, plus their business and, why they've chosen to focus on short-term rental operators and that kind of thing. It seems like that was a claim that was just another day for them, right? Like, Rory, was that the impression that you got as well? Like, certainly it was something that they were going to pay out, because it was one of their insured that had a loss. But, my take on it was that it was like, the top claim they had to pay out, over the course of a certain period of time. And, maybe it was, but it seems like it was just yet another claim that they paid out.
I mean, perspective is different. If this is something you work in every day as an adjuster, as an agent, in the claims department, this is something that you probably experience all the time. But homeowners may never experience this. And it's always going to feel like a much bigger event to that homeowner than it will to the people who are professionals in the space.
Yeah.
Andy, talk about some of...
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Jason. I was just saying that if you're... Oh, sorry. Jeez.
Go ahead.
Just to say, again, that claim, like, for example, that you guys had, right? It's different once we look at it from day one. Right? Like if we get in on day one and we overview it and, we can assess it and handle that claim from the beginning, that's when the max claim can happen. Like that's when really our clients benefit. It's when you come in the back and let's say you guys went through that claim and then they did underpay or something wasn't right. And then you call us, that's when it gets harder. And then that's when it's hard to fight for a claim. That's when a claim goes on longer. But with you as an investor, you have loss of income. So you can actually take a claim further. Right, we can actually spend more time working, negotiating to get everything paid out because you're actually receiving loss of income. Whereas a homeowner, let's just say they have a family, they're in a different scenario, right? They're getting paid for living somewhere, but they're out of their house, their kids up, so they're in a different situation.
Yeah, that is a tricky thing with short-term rental properties is that, they're often either second homes or investments for people who are the insured. And, I would fathom that most people listening to this who have a second home that they use on Airbnb, if they're not working with a specialty company that focuses on short-term rental properties, they probably don't have things written into their policy about loss of income. And, let's just say that you're listening to this and something like this were to happen to you leading into your busy season. Let's say it's a lake home or a house on the beach, and you use it with your family, but you also rent it out 8-10 weeks out of the summer to be able to help pay for it. If you have a loss leading into that season where you're not getting that income because you had to cancel guests and you're not able to take reservations and you can't use the property yourself, you do need to make sure that your policy has, coverages for you and loss of income, which I would fathom to guess most don't have. But ours did, which is a good thing. And that would have been something that a company like Andy's could have helped fight for to make sure that we were getting paid out the correct amount of money. Now, Andy, in the short-term rental space, and I want to hear a little bit about your Airbnb property that you purchased with your wife recently, but you've worked on claims for people for short-term rental properties. What are some of the things that you've seen that maybe coverages are missed, or coverages have to get fought for, or they don't exist in the first place? Like when you're brought into that type of situation, what are some unique challenges that those owners have faced?
Yeah, so I think you said it pretty well, Jason. Specialty coverages, like this is a short-term rental. This is not a second home. This is not a long-term rental. This is a short-term rental. A lot what we've seen is, we've had claims denied because there's exclusions in policies that don't cover short-term rentals. And people get, they don't tell their agent, or, they have a regular rental, they turn it into Airbnb and they just assume it's still a rental. A lot of policies will have an exclusion for Airbnbs. So you have to be careful and know your policy and make sure that if you are going to be hosting an Airbnb, that you do update your policy, that you get with the carrier that does actually pay, that covers Airbnb specifically, which is very important. Also contents, the personal property is yours, right? It's different when you have a long-term rental. The tenants bring their own furniture. Here, everything is supplied by you. So having good inventory of everything, receipts are one thing, right? Because some stuff you might buy cash, some stuff you might buy discounted, but having photos of everything. And what's great about Airbnb is you usually have great photos because you're using them for marketing. So you usually have really good documentation. Like I was explaining to you before the show, we're handling a claim for a gentleman that's, I don't even know how many Airbnbs he already had. And he had a huge storage unit that had pipe burst, everything got damaged. So he threw everything out. So obviously, how are you going to inventory it if it's in the garbage? Well, he had great photos from all the Airbnbs. So we were able to go through all the photos from his previous Airbnbs and actually inventory that way. That's his contents, personal property alone is at 200,000, over 200,000 right now.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, we had a great inventory, obviously, Rory. I mean, both with the rebuild and with what was there, because everything was literally new. We knew how much everything cost. And we went back to the builder who built it, and he was available to rebuild. And we said, hey, we just got to, redo flooring, redo cabinets, everything. And then he knew where to buy all that stuff, right? Like he literally had receipts of everything. So like we knew exactly what we lost, how much everything cost, where we purchased it. He had that as well. I can't say I would know that here in, we're recording this from our primary home, like in our office, right? Rory, I don't know where we got a lot of this stuff.
Correct.
Right. So, so that is one benefit of having the short-term rental, is that it's likely you're going to have a pretty good inventory if you do have those really good photos. And if you don't have a good inventory, we recommend that is an action item you could take by listening to this. Make sure you inventory everything in that property in case this were to happen. But, Andy, you said it right there. I have heard from a lot of people who they're not sure if they have coverage, if they're going to Airbnb their property out. And I'm going to fathom to guess that most people who are doing short-term rentals with one property as their Airbnb, they're probably not covered properly. Or they're not covered correctly, I should say. I mean, like the company we work with is called Proper Insurance. So I don't want to use that word proper too much, because people can choose to whoever they want to get insured with. But we pay higher premiums because we have more coverage, and it's specified towards short-term rental properties. And that's the direction that we chose. Not everybody chooses that direction, and that's fine. That's on you if there's a loss.
Correct. And there's insurance companies, right? Like Chubb, some other premium ones, that their premiums are, we don't see many claims. Like once in a while we do, but it's very rare because there's some of the better, you pay a really high premium if you can afford it. to hopefully they come out, they pay for everything and everything, like you're covered. Like that's how it was supposed to be. So, but you pay for that premium, correct? Most people, 95% of people just have standard insurance. So for you guys, you guys decided to pay that extra premium to have that ease of mind that if something happens, we're okay. Worst case scenario, you can hire a PA, but we're okay. We paid a higher premium. Well, most situations we go into, it's not the case, right? Like we have a 4-unit Airbnb in North Carolina from flood that it's been 6-8 months that we're still ongoing with the insurance company, arguing and negotiating every dollar. So,
wow. Yeah, that is very much not the situation we had. I mean, literally from the flood. We're recording this about a year ago. A year ago, this happened, almost to the day, Rory. And it was fully rebuilt within 3 months. Everybody was paid. Money was remitted. There wasn't a dollar that was left out from what we were expecting. I mean, and hearing this 6 to 8 month situation that those owners are in, where you're fighting for them, man, that is tough. Because the bills still have to get paid. So you, as the public adjuster that's coming in there, you were hired by the owner, right? Like, just so we can kind of explain to the listeners how this
correct.
process
So like
works.
in your situation, you would hire me. The insured, whoever has the policy would hire us. Correct.
And you don't have to get into specific numbers, but your fee is based on what? A percentage of what you're able to recoup, or how does that work?
Yes. So whatever we recover, whatever we can get for our clients, that's where we get a percentage, and our fee starts at 10%.
Right.
And then different situations, right? Let's say you called us 3 months into claim, nothing got paid out, or maybe this much got paid out. Then we have then our contract changes to a higher percentage, but based on anything extra we get our client, not to exceed the 10% or 15, whatever the fee was initially. So we always cap it usually around 10-15 is usually where we cap our claims.
And that theoretically would have been a 10-15% of the entire claim payout, not just the delta that you would have been able to get above and beyond what was offered. Is that true?
Correct. So let's say in your situation, we would come in, right? It would be 10% of the total claim, but knowing every coverage, everything we can get, like I said, I can look at your policy and I know our fee would have been covered and more. Just knowing claims. Because I've looked at so many. Now, again, if we come in the back end, then it's a higher fee, but based on anything extra, right? Because some clients want to see, again, you were in a good situation right away. You seem like the adjuster was fine. Everything got handled right. We have clients that after a week, right, in the first day, maybe they don't want to talk to us or don't want to hire us, fine. But after a week and they see how communication is going with the insurance company, like the claim I just told you where the pipe burst and stuff, they didn't hear from their adjuster for over a week and a half, I don't think.
Right. So you're often hearing from your clients after the loss has happened, right?
New clients. So anyone new call. So a lot of the issue though with new clients calling us, because we get those every day, is when they call and it's too late. Or, hey, our claim has been delayed for this much, or it's been denied. We had a claim that just came in yesterday that we looked at. It was a pipe burst as well, but it was right around the toilet. Well, the plumber, they didn't hear from the insurance company for like 3 months. No one's reached out to them. And the lady's like, hey, I have a $50,000 bill from SurfPro, and they're sending it to me when they originally said the insurance was going to pay it. That's correct. But if the insurance doesn't pay a claim, then that bill goes back to the client because that's who owes for the bill. And so what happened was, as soon as I saw the plumber report and I saw what was written on the plumber report, I already knew that lady, she was getting a denial letter. That's why they weren't responding to her. If that plumber report was worded differently, that claim is paid fully. So
that's the report from the remediation company, right?
No, from the plumber.
No,
from the plumber. It was the plumber's report, correct? So it depends. We always advise clients to call us right from the beginning, right? Before something happens, before it gets delayed, before it gets denied. But again, new clients or people, sometimes they want to handle claims themselves. Again, you guys had a great situation. So, it's different. But yes, we come in for clients that we've had for a long time, because majority of our clients are investors, are going to be landlords. They call us right away. As soon as something happens, we're looking at it. Do we even need to help? If there's a cap on a limit, let's say it's a pipe break or a sewer backup, the limit's only $10,000. There's no need for us, right? The insurance is going to max out that policy. But we're looking at it anyways. So,
Right. Um, so now that you're a short-term rental owner, right? What are you? Well, first of all, congratulations. Like, what have you learned along the way so far?
I'm gonna have a short-term rental for sale very soon here. If you guys are interested, it's a lot
Wow.
of
Well,
work.
yeah,
Yeah,
that was a
listen, it's been great. We had a good deal on the property we found that was near our old home. And we did a good job. My wife did a great job. We did a remodel inside, quick remodel. She staged it. It looked great, but it's a lot of work, right? It's now she's handling the day to day because I run a full time business, and then all the other rentals, run themselves. They're easier to manage. We have tenants. With Airbnb, it's a really full time. It's more of a full time job. There's more work to it. Again, I think if you have the team in place, the cleaning team, the handyman, the repair, everything. I think it's you build a system. But with like our first one, we're finding out that it's definitely a lot of work, and I don't know if it's for us if we want to continue that route or if we're going to want to sell. So we'll still see how it does. We want to give it this year and then kind of go from there.
Yeah, give it a full 12 months, if you can.
Correct.
I mean, see the whole cycle. We always say that things really get moving the second year, is usually when you should start to see some benefits from getting good reviews, getting your systems dialed in, being able to up your rates, the following year versus the previous year, if it's a market where you could do that. But yeah, it is definitely an active endeavor. We've talked about that here on Smart Stay Show, and a lot of people who listen, they're looking to become great hosts, or wonder if this is something that they want to do either on the side or full time. And I think that a lot of people, when they get that first property, you always wonder, can I do this? Right. And then you do it. And then you're like, oh, okay, this is a lot more than I thought it was going to be. But there is a way, there's a way to really systematize everything. And, with you and your business and your life and your other investments, the decision that you'll be making is, how does this fit in with everything else? Like, is this a good component of our investments, or is this going to be a time suck that takes away from the growth of everything else? And that's just probably that's the calculus you'll be making.
That's 100% correct. And that's kind of what we're looking. Is it worth our time? Do we sell it and get into another commercial, another multi-unit like we've been doing? Because that's kind of our bread and, that's kind of what we're good at. So again, I think Airbnbs are great. That's why we did it. Because we know so many, again, podcast hosts like you, Jason, Rory, we know, other people in the business that do great. It's a great investment. So we just have to, again, figure out, is it going to fit into our schedule, into our life? And if, this is a route we want to go. So
let me ask you, like, what's one thing that you wish you knew about Airbnb before you decided to run down the road of Airbnb?
Oh God, how much furniture I had to put together from Amazon. Holy smokes. How many screws, how many, just beds, everything. That wasn't fun. I wasn't enjoying that one. I like building stuff, but not putting furniture together.
What about the instructions also, which are not always as legible?
No,
as
not
like
always. No, not always good. And, beds or anything else, like just all the pieces and no. And then they put the little stickers on like areas where people would see, and it drives me crazy when I see the A, E. So, then you're trying to take it off, but it's not coming off.
Yeah,
just little stuff like that. Listen, it's a great thing. But that was when my wife would just text me pictures. She's like, "Hey, there's like 3 boxes waiting for you." I'm like, "Oh, great!" After working all day and after doing this, let me come home. I got to stop there and put 3 pieces together. So.
Not only do you have to assemble everything, but now you have to dispose of all that styrofoam, all that packaging.
Yes. Oh,
it's a pain in the butt.
We had a whole garage full. I literally had to call a company to come and holler because it was a whole garage piled of boxes.
This is the stuff that you don't think of when you want to run down this road, but it is.
You're right.
It is a fact. This is the world we live in. Yeah.
But if it starts, generating a ton of money, then you're like, holy smokes, it's great, right? You just have to. I told my wife the same thing, right? We have 1 review. We just started, so let's give it 12 months to say if it's going to work or it's not before we say no. Because right now we have 1 review. It's winter. People don't even know about it. So there's a lot that's against us. It's not like we need the money or we're like we need to make it work. So we have time to to push this through and see how it works out.
Yeah, it's way too soon to call it quits. I mean, all that work is front loaded. That first year is several times more work than you have to put in the subsequent years. So don't judge it by that. If
Thanks,
after
Rory. You're making me feel good. I'm going to make sure my wife listens to this, by the way.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
absolutely. She has to.
If after 2 years it's still taking up too much of your time, then that's a different story. But that first year really is an investment. You mean you won't be assembling as much furniture, you won't be disposing of as many boxes, you won't be spending so much time there. All the little problems that come up, you'll figure ways to avoid them. But it does take that first year.
So, let me ask you: is there one thing that hurt? Like we've had people rent it now and stuff, and just seeing stuff not put away the right way, or like super dirty kitchen or stuff, that hurts. I guess that hurts me more, just because I'm like, oh man, we did all this work, and people come in and you need a deep cleaning after, or stuff's like damaged. I don't know. That kind of I'm very sentimental towards that stuff.
Making sure that the cleaners know what to clean up, but also making sure the property is as simple as possible. I mean, we get the TVs that we pick are the ones with the Roku built into the TV. So there's one remote control with as few buttons as possible. We get the thermostats that are the simplest to use. We have like the remote technology so we can lock and unlock the doors from our home. We try to keep it as simple as possible. That's easier said than done, but you'll notice after having a first couple guests, if even if it seems ridiculous and people are making the same mistake over and over again, that means that you need to adjust your systems, adjust what you have in the house to make it a little bit easier for them. But that's what I mean. It takes about a year to do that. And then you might have the house more or less idiot proof after the first year.
Thanks. We'll put bumpers in all the corners too.
We try to disassociate ourselves from any sentimentality with any of our properties, despite the fact that we stay in all the ones that we own, and the ones that we co-host are near and dear to the hearts of the folks that own those properties as well. But with that said, I think that like if a place, knock wood, I haven't had a place get trashed, but like we've definitely had places that are really messy, and usually my cleaners will send additional photos showing all this. I've walked into some places afterward where, sinks full of dishes and things are just kind of left there. And it just makes me wonder like why people would do that and how they leave their own homes. And we realized
that's the situation we just had, Jason.
Yeah. And I walked into the house that had the flood a couple weeks ago before my cleaner walked in. I happened to be there, and there were extra dishes and things left in the sink. And, I didn't feel sad. I was just like, ugh, that's a pain. Like, why would they do that? And I just cleaned everything. Right. Yeah. I don't know, Rory, am I a little callous toward our properties in that I'm being very pragmatic. I think that if it's messy, it gets cleaned up. Right.
The truth is, if you do it over a number of times, the vast majority of the stays are going to be uneventful. People have been better than I expected overall in the aggregate. So most of the time you go, we don't do it ourselves. Obviously, we have the cleaner, the cleaning crew go out and do it. But most guests leave the house very clean, and it's a very easy job for the cleaners to turn around. Every once in a while, you'll get the terrible stay, but you have to think about how it averages out on the end. If out of one every 6 stays, it takes you extra work to clean up. Oh well, just kind of budget that in and mentally over time. But that's easier to do after you've had the perspective of several guests. When you've had just one, that's hard.
Yeah. We're up to 512 reviews right now. I just checked.
Holy
4.96 on Airbnb after 8 years of hosting. And, we've had far more guests than those that have reviewed us. And I would not say that all those guests in aggregate are a 4.96. They're probably below that score if I were to give them opinion scores. But I tend to give people 5 stars if they didn't trash anything, just because that's what I like to get back.
That's awesome. Yeah, we'll see. We're excited. Like I said, we had a couple tenants. One was great. The other one, was like, eh.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Hey, Andy, have at it. you and your wife should be listening to Smart Stay Show on a regular basis, so you can stay encouraged and realize this is a space that you could make some money in, and build some systems and see if it's something that you want to continue long term. And if not, having the experience of being a short-term rental host and also have the experience of being an adjuster, I think it gives you a unique perspective of walking into properties that are short-term rental focused properties that are probably not insured correctly, that you could then help them.
No, that's correct. No, definitely. And again, don't get me wrong. The experience, so far, setting everything up and seeing, and then my appreciation to you guys and people that do short-term rentals, how much work it goes really into setting it up and making it nice. And if you actually care and want to have a nice rent, like short-term rental, there's a lot of work. So props to anyone that does it, you guys and anyone else.
What I was trying to say before I had the technical glitch was that we all appreciate what we do in the specialties that we all operate in. And I couldn't do what you're doing with all city adjusting, anywhere close to the level that you guys can, because you focus in on it. So, if people want to hear from you and learn more about you, being that you work in how many states? 40?
40 states that we have a license now.
Allcityadjusting.com is a website, right?
Allcityadjusting.com. And then if your listeners want to reach out to me, have any questions about policy, coverage, want to send us policies to review, they can reach me directly if they want. It's 708-655-4186. That's my direct cell if anyone wants to reach out.
Wow, dangerous. I think you did that last time also. So
I did.
You're not getting spammed.
Not many people, I'm surprised. I would think more people would take advantage and say, hey, and people do though. They, don't get me wrong, send me policies and we get in touch and we at least talk, and they might never have a claim. Great, right? But I've been able to give a lot of people good advice on their policies and coverages and stuff like that. So, but I would think more people would take advantage and so. Well, hey, by the way, for short-term rentals, Jason, Rory, PAs are like, if I was short-term rentals, PAs are really good. Referral, because sometimes we're the first ones after fire, water. So relocation, we get a lot of calls for Airbnb short-term rentals for, hey, if we've given a lot of leads to people because again, if our clients have fires and, we can offer and help someone put them in an Airbnb. It's great.
That's a fantastic idea. Yeah. And a lot of folks are working in the medium-term rental space, and they're basically working in the insurance claim, relocation, had a loss at home world. And it's similar but different in short-term rentals. We do focus on shorter stays, but we certainly in the off season love longer stays. We've had people that are working in the area, no loss or anything, but that are working in the area and needed somewhere to stay for a longer period of time, staying at many of our properties, during the mud season that we have in New England. But yeah, insurance claim guests would be very welcome to many of us, because often they pay top dollar and they need a larger property and they need somewhere to stay for a long period of time.
Correct. Yeah. No, if you can call PAs, mitigation companies, agents, great referrals for anyone that has an Airbnb.
Look at that tip, 36 minutes into a podcast also. That's probably, if anyone's still listening, number one, call Andy or text him. And number two, that is a great tip. So, really work the phones in your area. Tell everybody that you have these properties available. And if any of these mitigation companies or PAs or anybody need to relocate folks, give them your number, because then they could just pass it on. And maybe you could even do an off-platform deal where you're not worried about Airbnb or Verbo fees, and you're getting a great tenant that's going to keep your property in good shape for a long period of time. Excellent. Well, Andy, thank you again for appearing with us here at Smart Stay Show. We'll look forward to learning more about your journey in the short-term rental world yourself next time we speak with you on the podcast. We can't wait to learn what you decided to do. I'm not going to encourage you to do one thing or the other. You'll figure it out as time goes on.
Jason, Rory, thank you again for having me, man. It's always a pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, likewise. And Rory will plug STR.legal. If anyone has any legal questions, especially here in Massachusetts or New Hampshire, they can reach out to you there.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe and like the podcast. We love your reviews. Hopefully they're 5-star reviews, and we read all of your comments. If you want to be a guest on the show, you can go to smartstayshow.com, fill out a form, and get all past episodes there. See you next time.